Are we in a bubble? I'm not talking about a sci-fi movie. I'm talking about the card market, really looking specifically at the basketball card market. We've seen prices take significant leaps in the last few months, and really the last 3 years have been a really great bull market. But a lot of people have been asking me, especially recently, are we in a bubble? Are these prices sustainable? Is this something that we're going to see pop and a lot of value just get deflated out of the market? That's what we're going to look at today in this video. Hey, welcome back to the most passionate content for card collectors on YouTube and possibly the entire internet. Once again, I am your host, Jake Roy, 90s Bball Cards. So today we've got a little bit of a different video. We're talking about, is the card market, really the basketball card market, a bubble? You might have seen recently I posted a graph on my Instagram page and also on Twitter. If you're not following me on those right now, go take a look at those. I tend to share things so you can kind of get a little bit sometimes of a preview of what we might be looking at in this week's video. But I shared a graph that was actually published in Forbes and some other publications that showed the average trajectory of every financial market that has had a bubble in the history of really finance. So you've got the US housing market, you've got the dot-com bubble, you've got railway mania, you've got the US housing market, there's a tulip bulb type of thing that had a little bit of a bubble. So this is the average trajectory of all those markets. What they've seen those markets tend to do over time. Obviously, things are a little bit different with each one, but each of those follow a similar trajectory. So a lot of people have been asking me if we're in a bubble for sports cards. So I was looking at this graph and it made me think this might be something that we can compare. So what I did, not only looking at this graph, but I also said, let's go and look at some data. And thanks to the new tool that you may have been enjoying, Card Ladder, I know I have been playing with that a ton. But now I feel like I have a tool that I can actually go and look into some of this and do some research that actually can benefit me and you as we're looking into something like this. Obviously, as collectors, we're not as impacted, if we're true collectors, as people who are investing in sports cards. If you're investing, then you obviously want to make sure that you're projecting when stuff's going to peak and when it's going to dip, and make sure that you're not the one holding that hot potato when it's dipping. So as a collector, though, a lot of times we buy things and it's not really important what the value of that item is. We're buying it because we want it as a collector. For example, the person who bought the PMG green, regardless of how much it was going to cost them, they wanted that card in their collection. They're probably not going to be moving that ever, or at least for a very, very long time. So those are the types of situations that we find ourselves in as collectors. But I have also been hearing people kind of grumble and say, is this even a hobby anymore? Is this something that I can even afford to do? Is this something that I can enjoy at the price points? So I think, that is something that as collectors, looking at whether or not these prices are sustainable and how long of a trajectory we might be seeing is something that I think is important for us to take attention to as well. So looking at Card Ladder, I decided to go and look at some cards. A handful of cards. There are over 500, I think close to 600 cards that are prominent cards on Card Ladder right now. So definitely gave me a good smattering. I focused on basketball cards. I was mainly looking at 90s cards, but I also wanted to look at some of those prominent cards that are in the market right now, some of the very popular cards. So without further ado, some of what I saw, so looking at Luka Doncic, there's really not a player that's hotter than him right now in cards. So looking at his Prism base card, we can see that looks like it's still kind of peaking. Looks like those prices are going up exponentially. So that one trades pretty often. So I was looking at, okay, well, what's something a little bit more rare that maybe doesn't trade quite as often? So looking at his silver, and we're seeing a similar trajectory there, if not even a little bit more steep of a trajectory for his silver. So those seem to be indicative of maybe it is we're kind of ramping up on the scale of a bubble. So then I said, okay, well, let's look at maybe a little bit older of a player because that's a pretty new card. So maybe that's still got a lot of growth. So looked at LeBron James, looked at his Topps Chrome rookie card. That thing has been going crazy lately. And similar trajectory there. We're seeing that those prices are continuing to go up pretty significantly. So then looked at maybe a little bit less of a prominent card of his in his Topps base rookie. And the same story there. So, so far, it's looking like we're pointing at a little bit of, and even if markets are going up, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bubble, but maybe these are pointing to it could be a little bit of a bubble. So then I started looking at some 90s cards. Gary V recently posted about some Shaq rookie cards. So I looked at the Beam team that he had posted about. So that Beam team is having the same trajectory. It's going up significantly and pretty quickly. So then I looked at his Upper Deck. That was a prominent rookie card of his back in the day, but it's pretty common. It's not as rare as an insert card, and it definitely doesn't have any sort of significant technology. It's a cool card. It's a nostalgic card, but not terribly rare. But that one's also peaking. So everything's pointing to the same direction. So then I went and looked at, okay, Michael Jordan. We saw his prices go crazy sky high during the Last Dance, but have they tapered off? So I looked at the 97-98 Fleer Metal Universe Planet Metal. And that in a PSA 10 has been going crazy. But I think that that's really bucking the trend for Jordan cards. I think that that is kind of an outlier. So that one's been going crazy, but I don't know yet if that's indicative of the whole Jordan market. Maybe there are some other pieces in the market that have been dipping a little bit. So we'll see. And then, of course, I had to look at my buddy, Penny. So Penny, there's two cards of his on Card Ladder. His Topps Finest base rookie and his Topps Finest refractor rookie. So looking at those, and we're seeing a similar trajectory. Those prices soar, and it's always a lot of fun to see your cards go up in value. So all of these cards are looking like they're peaking. So I wanted to do a little more research. This was not enough for me to satisfy my quest for knowledge. So I looked at a few more. So let's look at the 1986-87 Fleer Michael Jordan rookie card. Probably the most iconic basketball card, if not the most iconic sports card that there is out there. So I looked at the Jordan Fleer rookie card, and it looks like that peaked, and it was getting close to $100,000, and then it started dipping down. So we're looking at maybe a little bit of a peak and retreat. That could be indicative of what's called the first sell-off in that bubble market. So then I looked at another Jordan card, the Scoring Kings. This one I looked at in a BGS 9. I was trying to find cards that had sold relatively recently and, had a decent volume. Obviously, PSA 10s in that 93-94 Scoring Kings, very hard to come by. They always don't come up terribly often. So looking at that BGS 9, looks like we're seeing a peak and retreat as well. The folks at House of Jordans had talked about this on their podcast, that Scoring Kings card, we saw that the prices ramp up, and then a lot of people said, oh, well, I'll sell mine at that price, and the market got a little bit oversaturated, and it started to soften a little bit. So we're seeing that here. So then I wanted to look at another player outside of Jordan. So looked at LeBron James and his 2012 Prism base card. So that card, we've seen a similar trajectory where it has peaked and it looks like it's coming down a little bit. It's retreating a little bit. So then I started to say, well, maybe, that 2012 Prism set had been on a meteoric rise. Maybe that whole set is kind of doing a peak and retreat right now. So I looked at the Kawhi Leonard rookie card in that set, and it looks like that one is not doing a peak and retreat. So it looks like that one is going up and up and up. So that's not indicative of the whole set. It's certain cards in that set, it looks like, or maybe it's just that LeBron James because it had gone up so much so quickly. So then I wanted to continue doing some more research and look at some more 90s cards that weren't those top guys, not just Jordan, LeBron, and Luka. So I looked at 1998-99 Topps Chrome rookie cards. Some very popular players that, are kind of that next tier. So Paul Pierce, we've seen that his rookie card, the base rookie card, it looks like it went up, it went down, and now it's coming back up again. So interesting there, kind of a peak, retreat, and peak. Or maybe it's peaking again, or maybe it's just going to kind of keep bouncing around like that. Remains to be seen, but interesting. It's a little bit of a different trajectory than we've seen. So then I looked at maybe a little more prominent of a rookie from that year, in Dirk Nowitzki. So Dirk is probably the most successful guy from that rookie year and probably one of the more collectible guys. And we're seeing a similar trajectory with the Dirk. So peak, retreat, and peak with that Dirk Nowitzki rookie card. So interesting that we're seeing that with both those. So let's look at a different set, not the same year. So I looked at the 97-98 Topps Chrome Tim Duncan base rookie card. Obviously, he's going into the Hall of Fame very soon, so, you know, that might factor in. But we're seeing the same exact thing with his peak, retreat, and then a peak again. So, you know, so we've got a couple of sets, a couple of groupings of cards. We saw some that have been going up and they're peaking. They're still kind of climbing potentially. We've seen that some that have seemed to peak and then dip down, and now we're seeing some that have gone up, gone down, and are now going back up. So I wanted to continue looking into some more and kind of get a larger breadth of stuff. So looking at the 2003 Chrome, we looked at the LeBron James rookie card and how that one's peaking. So let's look at another prominent player from that set and look at the Kobe Bryant. So not a rookie card, but it's still a Hall of Fame, you know, all-time great player from a great set. And it looks like that 2003 Chrome of Kobe has been pretty steady. Or actually, this one, I shouldn't say it's been steady. It's been fluctuating considerably. You can't say that it's been trending up and then trending down or anything like that. The sales have been jumping up and down, up and down. You know, so I tend to say that that's kind of steady because you can probably take a mean of all those data points and get a general idea of what that card would be doing, but it's not, you're not seeing a significant trend up or down is what we're seeing with that. So that's not indicative of all of the 2003 Chrome. So then I looked into another one from 1998 with the Vince Carter Topps Chrome Refractor rookie. So we saw Gary Vee talk about Vince Carter, but he talked about the SP Authentic. So what are we seeing with the Vince Carter Refractor? And what we see is that one looks like it's been pretty steady. You know, a little bit of an increase over time, but a pretty steady climb. Nothing too dramatic. So I wanted to compare that to another one and look at the Paul Pierce. And the Paul Pierce is not, the refractor version is not doing the same as what the Vince Carter is. So it's not the trend for all cards in that set. It's not true for all 1998-99 Topps Chrome rookie refractors. So what we're seeing here is a plethora of different trajectories for different cards. So what does that mean? What does that tell us? Well, Chris from House of Jordans and Josh from Cardboard Chronicles went on one of their crossover, their Instagram live shows, and they actually discussed this graph that I put out there. And they kind of weighed in on it, and I think that their thoughts echo a lot of what I think. So I'll share with you what they said, and then I'll give you kind of my layer of it, and then I'll pass the question off to you. So Josh was saying that if we are to see this graph of the bubble economy and say that the cards are in that same trajectory, we're probably at the beginning of the institutional investor phase. We're nowhere near a mania phase. You know, Bitcoin, for example, reached a mania. Everybody was talking about it. It was all over the news, it was in your workplace, and Josh used that exact same analogy. This is not anything like Bitcoin. So if we are seeing a bubble, I think we can call Bitcoin a bubble, we're still in the early phases. But he also made a very good point. Cards are not like a traditional financial market. If you get a card, there's an intrinsic value, even outside of the monetary value. So if you buy a stock of Apple and Apple goes out of business tomorrow, that stock's not really going to be worth anything. You know, I'm not a financial expert, so we're not going to get into what makes stocks and bonds and, you know, all those different traditional means of investing valuable. But what we do know is that for a company to have a profitable stock, they need to be performing well. And if they aren't performing at all, if they're out of business, then yeah, it's not really worth much to anybody. And the same thing with Bitcoin. Those have to be valuable just for the value of them. There's nothing outside of the value of them that people are drawn to. But cards aren't the same way. If I'm a collector of a card, I don't necessarily want the card because it's valuable. I want it because of any number of reasons. You know, I recently got the 99-2000 Fleer Tradition Round Ball collection, which I've been looking for a long time. And to say that that's a valuable card, maybe it's valuable to me, but it might not be valuable to anybody else. But I still want it, even though it might not be valuable to anybody other than myself. So that's what we're seeing with cards. Cards are collectible market. They aren't purely a financial market, even though some people are coming in, they're talking about investing, they're talking about like it's a pure financial market. Josh, I think, aptly said it's more of a closer analogy to coin collecting or art collecting. Wine collecting, I've often said, is similar to card collecting. Even like sports cards, rare cars, those are a little bit of a closer analogy. I think wine is a great analogy to cards because you've got the vintage, which is the same years a card was produced. You've got the producer, which is kind of similar to Upper Deck, Panini, Topps, those companies. And then you've got your variety. So, you've got your Cabernet, you've got your Merlot, you've got your Pinot Noir. So that can be similar to a Prism and a Select and a Hoops and a Donruss. So I think that wine collecting and card collecting are kind of very similar in a lot of ways. So I tend to agree with Josh that this is not something that we can compare truly to a bubble economy. Do we see a significant uptick in prices? Yes. Do we think that these are sustainable over the long term? Probably not. But we're in a period right now where it's a perfect storm. We're all stuck at home with COVID. We're not going on vacation and spending money. We're not going out to eat. We're not going out to the movies and spending money. So we're going to spend money on something else that's some entertainment. Sports are not being played, so what's going to scratch that itch? Probably cards. We had the Last Dance documentary come out during all this, so people started looking at Jordan cards, looking at 90s cards, and then starting to look at basketball cards more and more. And then we also are in a period right now where we're looking like the NBA is going to come back. We're going to have a playoff, but it's going to be running later in the year, so people are getting excited about basketball coming back. But we're not going to really probably have a true off season, which is when typically cards dip a little bit. And then we're going to roll right into the next cycle of the next year. So it might be a full year before we see a more traditional cycle for basketball cards. So it's really a very unique time in the market. It's a fun time, but it's also a time to be very careful, I think. So do I think we're in a bubble? No, I don't think we're in a bubble, but I do think that there are certain cards that we're seeing that are going up significantly. Other cards are getting left behind. They might be getting overlooked. They might be items that you can go and pick up and still enjoy the hobby. So there's still ways, even if you're getting priced out of some of your, timeless treasures. If you are a penny collector and you did not get a penny chrome or penny finest refractor rookie before these prices have come up, I wouldn't say go out and get one before they go up any higher. I would say wait it out. Go and find some of the other penny cards like I've been able to do that aren't getting looked at right now, and go pick those up so you can still enjoy your collecting and wait for that finest to die down a little bit. I'm sure it will over time. And it's just a patience game. If we're looking at this in terms of, I need to get something before prices go up, you're probably looking at a little bit more of a short-term basis. But for somebody like me who's been in the game since 1995, I know that there are cards from 95 that I wanted that I still want today. And there are cards from 95 that I wanted that I've been able to get today. So over time, you will be able to get the cards that you want in your collection if you're patient, if you're savvy, if you're looking at them when other people might not be. So I don't think we're necessarily in a bubble. I don't think that these prices are going to stay around forever. I think it's a good time to enjoy the good prices while they last for a lot of people that might be looking to buy and sell and flip and kind of go up the card ladder, if you will, to get some of the bigger pieces in their collection. But that's my opinion. I know that's similar to what Josh and Chris have said, but I'll pass the question off to you. What do you think? Do you think, maybe I'm wrong, do you think that we are in a bubble for cards? Do you think that there's going to be something that'll happen to make the bubble burst and we'll see a significant dip in values across the board? Or do you think that we're, in a different type of market that might be a little more sustainable? Whatever you think about the current market, drop that down in the comments below. As I said at the beginning, I use Card Ladder to do a lot of this research. I'm not getting endorsed. I'm not getting paid by them. This is not an advertisement for them. This is a tool that I have been enjoying significantly. So I wanted to share it with you, but let you know that this is by no means an advertisement. By no means are they coaxing me into sharing this all with you guys. It's just a tool that I have been asked about, how I like it, and I like using it for research of these means. A lot of the cards that are on Card Ladder are not cards that are necessarily in my collection, but it gives me an opportunity to take a look at data in a way that was not previously possible and make some decisions or just do some research and share it with you. So enjoy Card Ladder. I'm definitely a user, but I am by no means being compensated for sharing this with you. So thank you for taking your time and chatting today. I'm really interested in your thoughts on this topic, so drop those down in the comments. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos in the future. Typically, we do pack openings and talk about PC. This is a little bit of a divergence because I'm a little short on time right now. But hopefully, we can do more of these if you like them. So let me know what you think about stuff like this and more of a conversational type of video. Thanks. We'll talk later.